Assalamu alaikum student, I am ihsan and you are watching Learning Corner Online. Today I am going to deliver my lecture on verb. Today we will discuss the function of verb and its type and its role in the grammatical construction of an English sentence. Understand? So let us take a start from the definition of a verb. Okay, when we talk about the verb actually shows some action. It describes an action in a sentence. Understand? The action which is performed by a subject, that action is described by the verb, which is performed by the subject but described by the verb. Understand? So not only a verb tell us about the action in a sentence, but it also describes a state. Understand? Okay. And it also tells us about the event in a sentence. It also describes an event in a sentence. Now, let's move on towards the types of verb. In fact, I am going to discuss the main types of verbs. When we talk about the main types of verb, we have action verb. The first one is action verb. Then we have stative verb. We have linking verb. And we have auxiliaries. And we have further divided the auxiliaries into primary auxiliaries and modal and secondary auxiliaries. The secondary auxiliaries are also known as modal verbs. Okay. Now, action verbs, as its name suggests, it describes an action in a sentence in which a subject is involved in a physical action or in a physical activity. Stative verbs only describe the states in which no physical action is performed. Then we have linking verb. Actually, linking verb is used to connect a subject with a predicate. Understand? Linking verb is also known as copula in English grammar. Okay, then we have auxiliaries, and definitely auxiliaries have different function to perform, but I have already discussed these auxiliaries in my previous lecture and my previous videos. Okay. Now, let us discuss some other types of verb. So, we have dynamic verb. Dynamic verbs. Let us discuss the function of dynamic verb. So, when we talk about the dynamic verb, it shows physical involvement. It describes that type of action in which the subject is physically involved in an activity. So, whenever we find a subject in a physical involvement, when a subject is physically involved in an action or in an activity, the verb used in that case will be dynamic verb. Like, look at this example. He writes a letter. He walks slowly. These two examples suggest that the subject of these two sentences is involved in an physical activity. Let me tell you something more about the dynamic verb, that dynamic verb not only it have continuous form, it have a simple form, but it also have a continuous form. So, dynamic verb exists in both simple as well as in continuous form. Like we can also say it in this way, that he is writing a letter or he is walking slowly. So, it has a simple form as well as continuous form. That is all about the dynamic verb. Now, move on toward the stative verb. Let us discuss the function and the role of a stative verb in an English sentence. Okay, when we talk about the stative verb, let me tell you something about the stative verb, that it describes the state. I means the subject is not physically involved in any activity, and normally we have only simple form of these stative verbs. We have only simple forms of, like look at these examples. We use think as a stative verb, hate is used as a stative verb, love is also a stative verb, as well as understand. Understand, like he loved his country. Like for example, I am going to give you another example. There is, I know him. Now I can't say I am knowing him. It will be grammatically incorrect if I say I am knowing him. Instead, it is rather more appropriate to say I know him instead of saying I am knowing him. Understand? Okay. Now let us move on towards the perception or sensation verb. Perception or sensation verbs. Perception or sensation verbs describe one of our five senses. One of our five senses. Understand? Like we have sense of touch, we have sense of taste, we have sense of smell, we have sense of hearing, and we have sense of sight. Understand? So whenever a verb it describes one of these five senses, that verb is a perception verb or a sensation verb. Understand? Look at this example that I am going to share with you. I heard phone ringing. Now, the word heard refers to our sense of hearing. That is why it is a sensation verb. And in this case, like for example, the cake tastes delicious. Now, the verb taste refers to our sense of taste. That is why the verb taste is a sensation verb or a perception verb. Understand? Now, let us move on towards another type of verb, that is linking verb. Linking verb. Now I am going to discuss the linking verb. When we talk about the linking verb, it connects a subject with a complement, and complement contain information that is related to the subject, and a complement always refers back to the subject. And in between the subject and complement, the verb that is used, that verb is known as a linking verb, of course. Understand? It is also known as copula, like he is intelligent. The word intelligent is a complement. Why? Because it contains information about the subject and it refers back to the subject, and the verb used over here is a linking verb. Okay. Now, let us move on towards the hypothesis verb. Now, I am going to discuss the hypothesis verb. That what do we mean by a hypothesis verb in English grammar? Understand? So, hypothesis verb make an assumption for the sake of an argument. For the sake of an argument. Understand? We want to make an argument. For that we need assumption, and that assumption is provided to us by the hypothesis verb. Like for example, I wish it rained, but it didn't. But I described this wish by the virtue of hypothesis verb. Understand? We also have another type of verb, that is causative verb. Where do we use the causative verb? Causative verb is used when someone performs something for us. Understand? In such cases we use causative verb. Like for example, I have my hair cut. Understand? Like I want to repair my car or my house. For that I need to have the services of someone. So in order to mention the services of that person can be a professional or non-professional, but I can mention and I can highlight his services by using the causative verb. Okay, now let us move on toward the regular verb and irregular verb. When we talk about the regular verb, in case of regular verb, the conjugation follows the same typical pattern, but it is not the case with the irregular verb. In case of irregular verb, the same typical pattern is not followed. Understand? Now, if you want to have second and third form of regular verb, we can get the second and third form of a regular verb by simply adding d or ed participle to it. Understand? Like walk, we have verb walk, and we can have its second and third form by adding simply d to it, like we have walked, ed to it, like we have walked and we have walked. By simply or by through the addition of ed, we can get the second and third form of the verb walk, like complete, completed and completed, like finish, finished and finished. Understand? Like learn, learn and learn. Understand? So these verbs follows a same typical pattern. These verbs follows same typical pattern, but it is not the case with irregular verb. Like we can't get the second and third form of irregular verb by adding d or ed to its first form. Like look at this example: begin, began, begun; come, came, come; become, became, become. Okay, so that was all about the regular verb and irregular verb. Now let us move on towards the transitive verb and intransitive verb. Both transitive as well as intransitive verbs are action verb, means both of them describes an action, both of them describe an activity in which the subject is physically involved. Understand? This is one thing that is common between the transitive verb and intransitive verb. The difference between these two is that transitive verb always require an object in order to give complete meaning. Transitive verb does not give complete meaning without object. But intransitive verb doesn't need any object, rather it's give complete meaning without object. Like for example, he eats an apple. Here the word an apple function as an object, and without this object the verb eats doesn't give complete meaning. Look at the second example: he walks slowly. Here in this case, in this example, we don't have any object, but the verb conveys a complete meaning even without an object. Then when we talk about the transitive verb, we have further divided the transitive verb into subtypes. Like we have monotransitive verb, and in monotransitive verb we have only one object. We have ditransitive verb. In ditransitive verb there are two objects, one is direct object and other is indirect object. And then we have complex transitive verb. In complex transitive verb we have one direct object with its complement, and the complement share information with about the object. Understand? Okay, that's all for today. Thank you. Stay blessed.